Welcome to the Essential Craftsman Podcast. I'm Nate. We have got a great discussion for you today with my dad and with Brian Reynolds. Now, you know Brian. He is a familiar face. He helped us with the dirt work and excavation on our spec house. You have seen him show up while we're finishing concrete from time to time. He is the real deal. There's just something about these farm boys who grow up operating equipment and working hard. They are just the ultimate problem solver, positive, hardworking, salt of the earth types. And that's Brian to a T. I didn't know Brian real well before this interview, but I'm a believer now. So I hope you enjoy this. We talk about dirt work and excavation. We talk about equipment. We talk about how Brian came to own his excavation company, the time he spent working for a concrete contractor, and a little bit about his background and education. And overall, I think you'll really enjoy it. Thanks for joining us. Let's get to it. First off, thanks for coming on our show. And my first question, Brian, I think I could say that little boys, middle schoolers, high schoolers, guys like me, old men, a lot of them are going to think you have a dream job of digging holes with huge pieces of equipment. And I know nothing is as it seems, but do you see that at all? Or is it to you, it's just work at this point?
Oh, you bet. It is. It's fun to play on equipment. I mean, get on a dozer and push dirt. I mean, who wouldn't love that? It's just like playing in the sandbox.
Yeah.
You know?
I was hoping you were just going to say it was miserable because now I really am jealous.
Well, he told me yesterday about a miserable day. Okay.
It has its days. You know, I was in a ditch yesterday putting in conduit, and it was pouring down rain, and I was covered in mud, and not so glorious.
Yeah.
But other days were better.
Something about pushing dirt. Or digging a hole. I mean, or playing on a dirt, my kids play on a dirt pile in the backyard for half the day. Just digging dirt is something fun about it. What is it?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just fun. There's just something fun about it.
Yeah, there's an element of risk and an element of just tearing stuff apart and still an element of building things. It's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Did you get more satisfaction out of running a big machine where you're digging and moving more dirt versus a little one, or is it sort of the same type of feeling, or what's the difference?
Certainly a bigger machine. Smaller machines, you're doing something maybe a little more technical in tight spaces, trying to dig around some existing utilities or pipes or whatever. When you're on a big machine in a rural area where there's nothing to hit, and you can just hog dirt. Now that's fun.
Yeah, but a little machine, there's anxiety all the time. Every move has got an element of, holy smokes, I don't want to break nothing, and I'm not sure what's there, and.
Yeah.
But that's got to be cool with a monster machine and clear sailing.
Sure. And, my machines aren't monstrous by any excavation standards, but to me, they're most, I have, a 30,000 pound machine is my largest machine, and it's not big, but.
So let's translate that for people who might be tuned in. 30,000 pounds is the weight of the machine sitting on the ground. And that ranges down to what? You've got a little machine that weighs what, 6,000 pounds?
6,000.
Yeah. So that's one way that people talk about the size of a machine. Like a D8 weighs what, probably 90,000 pounds or something like that. I'm pulling that number out of the air. But they get big and heavy, and they're exponentially more powerful as that weight goes up, right?
Yeah, and they can move more dirt.
Yeah.
What about your operator? The guys they've been doing this day in, day out for decades. Are they still enjoying it, and you can kind of see them like having a good time when they're moving dirt? Or
I think so. I think Dexter works for me, and he's done this for years, and he's way more experienced and qualified than I am to run a machine.
Yeah.
But he enjoys it. I think when he's stacking a boulder wall or something, that's stressful for him. And so after about 8 hours of that, he's ready to just walk away and be done with it.
Yeah. And he came from logging, right? I mean, a lot of guys around here come from the logging industry, which tapered off 30 years ago and then stepped over into excavation because it's running the similar equipment for a similar reason.
Yeah, I believe he started out setting chokers in the woods.
I think so, yeah.
I asked this similar question to Mitch in Arizona, a guy who did some dirt work for me, and he said, oh yeah, it's fun unless you're on like a loader or something, and that's just pretty mindless. And that was new information to me. Basically, if you're just like scooping dirt and dropping it in a truck, how repetitive that motion might be. At least to him, he was like, that seems boring. To me, it still seemed like a massive scoop. You're still kind of digging, but
you still get to smell diesel smoke. I mean, that's good, right?
Yeah, some tasks can be monotonous when you're just moving dirt from point A to point B, but there's still a certain amount of enjoyment to it.
Yeah,
and most of the time, it's not just that. There's usually another dimension or two in there.
My favorite thing to do is sculpting a property. You know, like when you're backfilling a house, no one's there to tell me where to put the dirt. I know how much dirt I have to get rid of that was developed during the excavation in the initial part of the build. And then I need to make all this dirt disappear and make it look nice. Yeah. That's my favorite part.
And what do you do that with? Like a skid steer or something?
A skid steer with tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. That little Takeuchi moves 100 miles an hour, man. That thing moves. I
love that machine. It moves a lot of dirt.
So it was probably 20 years ago. I rented, I don't know how long ago it was, that the track machines, specifically the Takeuchi, started showing up at United Rentals. You know, Tammy Morris had one to rent, and I had a job. And always before that, I had just rented Bobcats with rubber tires. And I rented that track machine, and it's like it's magnetized to the ground. It doesn't get off the ground and then bounce around like those rubber tires do. What a difference!
Huge difference. And you can work through the winter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In the rain, doesn't matter.
Just floats out on
it. It has the flotation and the traction, and you can get around great in the mud.
And it pushes harder, right?
It pushes harder.
Wow.
It doesn't bounce.
Yeah.
When you're driving it.
Never a flat tire.
Never a flat tire.
Wow.
So we're talking about skid steers, a little Bobcat, the kind that have like the tank style tracks or versus wheels. So what's the downside to the tracks then?
Well, you can't really use them on the pavement. They don't turn well.
It eats them up. It tears them up. It just
destroys them. Plus, they don't really turn very well.
They just don't like to turn.
There's a lot of rubber on the ground.
Right. So that one that's most, it just won't twist. It won't twist on the ground.
If you spray the asphalt down with some water, it slides a little better. But
wow.
Just destroys your track.
But on dirt, there's just no comparison.
Yes.
Wow. So maybe this answers my next question. And I asked Andrew Camerata this, but a skid steer, to me seems like the most versatile piece of equipment available. But a tractor is right there next to it. They're just also so different, and yet there's a lot of overlap. So if you had to pick one as like the better multi-platform tool, which would you pick?
I know what you're going to say.
I would pick a track loader.
He'd pick an excavator.
Hands down, because...
hold on.
Oh, wait, you mean an excavator track loader or back to skid steer?
A skid steer. With tracks. Because you can buy a mower for them, a bucket, forks. I mean, they're very versatile.
Brush.
Auger. And, a lot of these smaller tractors, they're not designed to move dirt. They're designed to mow fields.
Pull.
And move like light buckets of bark mulch or things like that. But to be able to move lots of dirt, these skid steers are designed to do that.
Interesting. See, you asked a question, and I, thinking like somebody who's not an excavator, I just thought you were going to kind of turn over the apple cart here and say neither. I would pick an excavator. I would want a track-mounted backhoe, man. They're just such a wonderful machine. They're a magic thing, man.
So these mini excavators, I say mini, but there's also larger ones it's all the same tool. It's small to large, and I've learned recently they are not an ancient tool. Maybe like 20 or 30 years ago is when they started showing up, at least smaller like that.
Oh, little ones.
Yeah, I guess the little ones I'm talking about. I guess when I was a kid, I saw backhoes everywhere, and everybody had backhoes, and every trench getting dug, it was a backhoe doing it. And now, I don't know, I just never feel like I never see backhoes.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in this, but I'm pretty sure the first excavators were all large,
big
machines,
like size,
and then they gradually got smaller as they went along.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that I know about the year 2000, about the time you went to Germany. I was, here doing my small contractor thing, and I thought about buying a little excavator because they were showing up and putting it on a trailer behind my truck and kind of switching over to just running a small excavator. So that was when I was beginning to see them and think about their versatility and And so I don't know, probably in around 2000, 1999, 1998, the little one started showing up all over. I don't know. I'm guessing.
So tell us, Brian, about how you go about. You bought a lot of equipment, new, used, everything in between. I don't know how much of it you sold, and if you kind of go through it or turn it over. But tell us about your thought process when you're going about buying a new machine, and kind of how you get that done.
I'm different than a lot of people. I don't like to finance equipment. Mm-hmm. If I want to buy something, I want to pay for it. And it's just way I am. So everything I've bought up till this year has been used. Either bought it at an auction or I bought it from somebody I knew that had one that wanted to get rid of a piece of machinery.
Part of your network.
But this year I bought a new excavator here just about a month ago.
New.
Brand new.
Oh.
Had like one hour and a half on it or something like that.
Wow.
It was hard for me to do, but it made sense. I needed it, and I put a large down payment on it, so
it made sense like for timing because you needed it kind of right away, or how did it make sense to you?
I don't know that you work with your accountant when you go and do things like that, and it made the most sense to finance part of it. So that's what we did.
Yeah. I mean, what's that like having a new one versus the old one?
Brand spanking new. What's that like?
Well, it makes you think a little bit differently when you look at the hour meter.
Yeah.
Man, we've only had this long and it's already got this many hours on it.
Yeah.
But the paint's wore off and the newness is worn off. It's got mud all over it.
So when you're greasing it, do you shed a tear once in a while that it's not brand new
Yeah,
anymore?
a little bit.
Yeah. So with equipment, okay, with cars, you can kind of tell when they've been taken care of because they're clean, usually. But equipment, even when it's brand new, if it's been on one job, it's filthy and dirty. So buying used equipment seems riskier than buying used cars in that way because they can really be abused. But you've bought a lot of used equipment, so how do you kind of go about that? Is it just all about the hour meter and cross all your fingers?
You look at the hour meter, and it's a gamble. I mean, you lose a drive motor on a excavator, that's an expensive cost, or hydraulic pump.
What was a drive motor? That's just like the motor that turns the wheels or the tracks?
Yeah, it's what drives the tracks. It's
hydraulic.
It's hydraulic.
It's a hydraulic motor that runs off the giant hydraulic pump that runs the whole world.
I see.
What are those called? I mean, those are probably an $8,000 item on a big machine.
I think they're more than that.
Whoa!
One for my small excavator was about $5,000.
$5,000 on a little one.
And
it was only this big around.
So you go larger, they're expensive.
Wow.
Yes.
So you lose one of those, but realistically, what else? You walk up, you look at a machine, you start it up, you run it. What are you looking for?
Oh, well, you get in and you run it and you feel it. If you can tell if it feels really loose, that's maybe been abused. Or
give some meaning to loose. Some of these folks don't know what loose means. What do you mean by loose?
Well, when you run the bucket, you can feel if there's slop in the pins.
Bam, bam, bam.
If you rotate the machine and you stop, but it keeps going a little ways.
That's loose.
There's some parts that get worn out.
Yeah.
That way. So some of the equipment I bought from the guy I used to work for,
Denny Potter. I used to hire Denny all the time. Oh, Bruce, you bought stuff from Bruce.
Yeah, I bought 2 pieces from him.
There you go.
And they're machines that I had run previously, and I knew what they were.
You put all the hours on
how they were maintained.
Yeah.
And so I knew on both of those that they were a sound purchase to make. I did buy an excavator at an auction up from Ritchie Brothers, and that was just a huge gamble.
How'd that go?
It was scary. First time I bought one at an auction.
Yeah. Did you go in person to the auction?
Went in person, went there. I was able to run the machine out in the yard.
Really?
And check it out. And
did you get auction fever and just like you knew you're going to get it no matter what? Or
those auctions move pretty fast.
Yeah.
They sell equipment so fast, and so it starts off, the bids are coming in pretty quick, and once they slow down, you better throw your hand in the air or it's going to be sold.
Done.
Oh.
And so I threw my hand there one time, and that was it.
And you had it.
It was done. I owned it.
Wow.
And my brother was with me, and I looked at him and said, Did I just buy that? Is that mine?
What happened?
Wow. So you got it for less than what you would have been willing to spend on it. In other words, it turned out to be a good deal.
Yeah. It turned out to be a fair price, and it's been a good machine.
Yeah.
Wow.
How big is that? I went to a Ritchie Brothers auction in Phoenix, and it was nuts. There's like a stadium. There's like literally like stadium seating.
Whoa.
it felt like they could have had a concert there, sort of. It was amazing. And then basically the vehicles or the equipment like drives across the stage, kind of,
really?
And all the people in the chairs, and it was unreal. And I don't know if that was an especially big venue or facility, or what was the one like where
I think that's how they are. The one I went to was up in Chehalis, Washington.
Okay, yeah.
Same thing. You sit in this, it's like an auditorium,
yeah,
and the equipment drives by on a stage.
Yeah.
All the equipment that's drivable,
right.
And then there's another room that's next to it.
Yes.
And they have the virtual auction in there.
Yeah.
And so cranes and excavators, equipment that they can't really drive across the ramp.
Yeah.
So they just show a picture of it, and you're bidding on, the picture.
So they just drive it across? Do they operate the features of the machine, or they just drive it across?
They just drive it across. They'll line up 6 off-road dump trucks across on the stage.
Whoa.
And whoever gets the bid, you can pick which ones you want. Or if you want all of them, or if you want number 1 and number 3, then they're yours. And then they let the next person take the ones they want, or they'll start over bidding again.
No kidding.
But they have, great concession stands.
Yeah.
It's a fun place to go.
People travel and go to those auctions just as activities. I met some people there who were like, "Oh yeah, it was like a vacation." They they don't follow the auction, but they will visit the auction as if it was like a sightseeing kind of a thing. And I can see why. It was like a festival there.
All right, so you're going to buy a little diesel piece of equipment. You get in and start it up. You're looking at the smoke. You don't want to see any white smoke come out of the stack.
Right.
You go around, check to see if the fittings have been greased near as you can tell. You look at the rolls and the undercarriage and see if there's anything left on the rails, on the tracks, and all that kind of standard stuff. Anything else? What else do you look at?
That's a big thing, especially with excavators or dozers. You want to look at the undercarriage, because it's all metal to metal wear parts. There's no really way to lubricate that or grease it or anything, and so it wears out. And that's a large cost to replace.
Yeah. And it's a certain cost. You can put it off, but sooner or later, somebody's got to replace that stuff.
Yes.
So you can just see like the connections, like, wow, that has worn back, and that you can just kind of see.
Yeah, you look at the sprocket and say, oh, that sprocket's
Yeah.
half gone.
Yeah, the teeth just get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and the scoops in between get deeper and deeper, and and the rails on the tracks are just sliding, like he said, they're sliding, and so they'll get thinner instead of the rail being 3/4 of an inch or whatever it was at factory, an inch or an inch and a half on a big machine. It just gets thinner and thinner, and it's got to be replaced.
Yeah, it's metal to metal, and then you add some mud in there and gravel, and it just wears out.
So last question on equipment, then we'll move on. Do you have any equipment needs that you're shopping for, or a piece of equipment that would make your life so much easier that you would hope to add to your
of course he does.
toolkit at some point? You got for the viewers right now. You got a collection of excavators, dump trucks, the skid steer. I'm sure a few other odds and ends, but
roller, and so I don't know. My next thing would be a new Takeuchi, because mine's a 2004. When I got it, it only had like 2,000 hours on it.
Oh,
and so it had a lot of life left in it. But I use that machine a lot, and so if it went down, I'd be hurting.
You'd have to go buy a new one.
I'd have to get something, because we're so used to the efficiency of it and what it can accomplish in a day. I'd be in rough shape without one. Yeah. So I'd like to upgrade that to a newer model for sure.
And you feel brand loyalty to Takeuchi at this point, I would think.
I don't know. I really like how it's made.
Because you do a lot of the work on them yourself too.
Yes. And that's the machine that I get to run most of the time.
Yeah.
Dexter, he's on the excavator. I rarely get to run the excavator. I mean, he's better at it than I am. So he's the one that runs it. So I spent a lot of time in that track loader. And
obviously that's a Japanese company based on
the name,
how that sounds to my ears.
Yes.
Why are the Japanese so good at making equipment and cars and stuff? What in the world?
Yeah, man.
It's like all you need to know. It's like it's a dirt bike, it's a car, it's a track loader. I'll take the Japanese one.
See, now I am the only guy at this party who remembers when it was 180 degrees out of phase on that.
Oh.
When made in Japan was the equivalent of made in China. Now, junk, not interested. Datsun trucks were about the first ones to show up over here. My Uncle Jim had one, and it was like, even I as a 12-year-old could tell, okay, this is like a Prince Edward in a can, tobacco can with 4 wheels on it. This is really light, you know. And my dad would mock it, but man, they changed their model. Yeah. They're awesome.
It is, yeah, amazing.
But I love the visibility that the Takeuchi has.
Oh, you can see.
You sit up a little higher. It has a big back window, and you can just see what you can see around you a lot better.
Yeah.
So because of that, I'd buy another one for sure.
So let me ask you this: how long did it take for Dexter, after you bought Denny's outfit, okay, and some of his equipment, and Dexter came with it? How long did it take him to acknowledge that it was so much better than that 4-wheeled case skid steer? Or does he still love that thing?
He still loves that thing.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to I like the tracks, the stability of it.
Yeah.
And so I get on that case skid steer and I'm bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's so good on it.
Yeah.
You know, we do a lot of driveway grading, and he's very efficient on it and makes it look really nice. And
yeah, so it works.
So when we go to a job and we need that machine, he runs it. If we need the track machine, I run it.
Cool.
So it works out pretty well.
So talk us through, if you had to make a pie chart of the type of work you do. You said grading driveways and such. I know you do septic installs. I know you do footing and site prep works. You did that for us. So talk about the type of work that you do as a, I guess, excavation contractor. Is that how you title your business? Or
yes. So the majority of our work is, I would say, rural home site developments.
Oh.
So somebody buys 80 acres, 5 acres. We go out there, we put in the road to the house. We'll cut the house pad. We'll deal with all the drainage.
Oh.
We trench the underground electrical. We'll run the water line from the meter or from the well to the house.
Huh.
We'll put in the septic system. And then once the footings are poured, we'll come in and we'll prep for all the patios. We'll backfill the garage with rock. We put in the downspout drains, hook up the water lines, sewer lines. And then once the house is complete, we'll do some final rock on the driveway, smooth up any dirt piles that are left.
Get it close enough the landscapers can come in and do their job.
Yes. And a lot of times a site has trees on it. So we'll come in and we'll take out all the trees, pull all the stumps, make slash piles. I would say that is the bulk of our work, is doing home sites for that, like that. And they're all custom homes.
Oh.
So I don't get involved in track home developments. It's not where I want to be.
Well, how come?
I don't know. It's a different market.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's a little cheaper.
Yeah.
The custom home market is good. People are willing to spend the money to do things the right way all the way through.
Yeah.
In track homes, it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent on having proper compaction.
Oh.
A lot of times, in track homes, they'll fill the garage up with 2 feet of crushed rock, run a vibroplate over it, and that's it.
That's it.
2
feet, vibroplate, boom.
Yeah, a vibroplate's good for 2 or 3 inches.
That's right. Below that, those rocks don't know anything's happening.
That's it. So it takes longer and it costs more money, but we'll put in 6 or 8 inches of rock. We'll hit it with a jumping jack. We'll put in another 6 or 8 inches of rock, hit it with a jumping jack.
Yeah.
And so I can sleep at night knowing that it's not going to settle.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a problem with that underneath their sidewalks, underneath their driveways. I have a background in concrete construction, and I've been on places where you could take a 3-foot stake and shove it all the way to the ground, all the way to the bottom
with the palm of your hand.
With your hand.
Yeah.
And that's not properly compacted. That ground's going to settle,
Yeah.
and their sidewalks are going to crack.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
disaster.
I won't do that.
So how does a homeowner or one of your customers, and I know a lot of your customers, you've told me, are custom home builders, but in general, how do you even go about bidding or pricing a job like that? Or how could somebody on the other side, let's say me, who wants to develop, let's say 40 acres, have any idea what it would cost to kind of do all of that stuff you just rattled off? And do you even know, or do you just kind of dig in, or how do you go about pinning down a bid on a price, or even giving estimates on something that, like you said, who knows what you could find under under the earth, right?
That's the one nice thing about excavation is most of the custom home builders that I work with, the excavation part of their bid is kind of open-ended, because you don't know what you're going to hit. If you go to dig a basement and you hit bedrock, it's got to get chipped out, and that's very costly. Right. So you don't know what's under the ground, and so you have a rock clause in your contract that says we'll dig this out unless we hit rock. But as far as the other items, just based on past history, we know about what it's going to take. Yeah. And so some builders I'll give them a bid, but it's still open-ended. So if it goes a little bit over, they're okay with that. Yeah. And if it goes under, I don't charge them the full bid amount. And so we have a good working relationship that way.
And that is so valuable because, there are people, well, it's like every other aspect of commerce, that the whole paradigm of anticipating costs and selling a price and then performing the work, there are so many ways to hurt people on both sides of the equation, that if you can have that relationship of trust where people are really pretty relaxed going in, that they're going to have to pay what it really costs. They're not going to pay less than what it really costs, and they're not going to have to pay more than what it really costs. For a lot of people who are developing rural sites like that, that's about all they have to have.
Yeah. And I guess with equipment, when I worked in accounting, and I know attorneys do this too, they have to keep track of their hours that they work on a client, because then they just bill that way. And I'm just thinking out loud that it's kind of handy these machines have these hour meters, because it's probably kind of, I don't know if you utilize it in that way, but I mean, if the machine runs for 14 hours to get the job done, it's kind of like, I don't know what to tell you. This was harder digging than we thought. It took 14 hours. And do you utilize the hour meters for billing at all?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Every single day. I have a notebook that I write in every day. It's like kind of like a diary, I guess. I write a
job log.
I write a description of what we did, what machines we used that day, how many hours they worked. I write down all the materials that were used on the job. And so even if it's a hard bid job, I track it that way, so I know what it actually took. Yeah. And on the jobs that are time and materials, I mean, that's what I pull my invoice off of, is all out of that book.
I guess what it is, maybe this is the answer. Like when someone's never done something, like I've never done any type of site work like that, I have no idea what to expect, how long that would take. No idea in the world. It could be like 2 hours, or it could be like 25 hours, for a machine.
Right. No idea.
But when you've done it a few times, I guess for you, it's sort of like you can have a pretty good idea of what it would take.
Mostly in day increments, though, right?
Yeah, mostly in day increments.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So everything's, that makes sense. It takes a day just to get the machines there, or half a day at least.
Yeah. I mean, you got to mob your equipment out there, and you know about how much you can accomplish in a day. I mean, a truck can only bring so many loads of rock in a day based on distance.
How far away is the pit, and what's the traffic like? You going through town or not? So that's been my experience talking to Brian and other people that I've hired to do things like that. Yeah, I'll probably be in here about 4 days, and he knows he's going to have 3 machines, and he wants whatever machine. And so I'd say, okay, and I use Denny a lot. Before you bought Denny's outfit, and I've used a few other guys, and I was never really profoundly disappointed on that. Probably as much as anything because I was usually right there with them in the way, running the rod or something, and you can see the equipment's running, and you can see the dirt going or coming, and so at the end of the day, but still I had to prepare a price for people, and so I would ask, you got an idea? What am I safe with? And I would put a safe number in there.
Yeah. It's all about, you gotta just be able to like trust somebody a little bit, and just that is pretty much priceless, because man, a contractor could really take advantage of somebody and be like, "Whoa, yeah, that's gonna take a long time," and then the person would be like, "Oh, okay, I have no idea."
Yep.
I know it's not just dirt work where that's a thing. It could be a mechanic. They're notorious for that. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. So, Brian, do you think that there's can people who are interested in this type of thing, they could rent this machinery and do these jobs themselves? Is it even possible to save money doing that, or you know what I mean? Like, let's say I was going to build a house, and I was telling you I'm gonna save a few bucks. I'm gonna rent all that. Is that even possible? or is it just hiring the pro that's going to cost them less?
You know, if you're a person that's pretty adept and knows how to, I don't know, how maybe has a background in some kind of construction, and you could rent a machine and you can do okay with it. But at the same time, we can do it probably more efficiently.
Yeah.
You know, if you dig a little too deep, maybe you didn't have a good laser or something like that, you're going to buy more concrete for your footings. You're going to buy more gravel. Things like that, they're going to end up costing you more money in the long run.
Or even like having a dump truck available, because if a person rents an equipment, they dig the hole, then you got to pay the company to come. They're not going to come till the next day, but
you're paying rent on the machine.
Yes, but or they're going to call you like some kind of short load for whatever. Whereas you own the dump trucks, and so they're going to be there. It just seems like almost that right there. If there's going to be any material or dump truck happening at all, I don't know how you could.
That's how it worked. That's how it worked for me. I mean, it's one thing to dig the dirt, and then you got to move the dirt, and then you got to get the dirt off site, and then you got to get gravel back and put in place, and you got to grade the gravel. And there's not one machine that's going to do it. I mean, you know, a backhoe comes close, but you still got to haul stuff in and out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, backhoe's nice. You can shuttle the material, you know, across the road. No
clean
problem.
messes up.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, having your own dump trucks is a big plus. I hate dump trucks. I can make more money with a mini excavator than a dump truck.
Oh, really?
Because dump trucks burn a lot more fuel. You have all these taxes. Your tires are taxed. There's huge costs, and I can actually bill more per hour for a mini excavator than a dump truck.
And have more fun running it.
Wow.
But at the same time, with the dump truck, I get rock when I want to get the rock.
Yeah.
I can haul my own equipment around.
Yeah.
You can clean up the mess when you need to clean up the mess.
Exactly. So it's a necessary evil. But with the dump truck, there's always something that has to be done to it. The tires wear out. It needs new brakes. It's always something.
A blinker's not blinking. Something.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same way with, I don't care. Cars generally are a blight, right? It's cars that keep us broke. It's cars that keep us frustrated. It's cars are a problem, and they're also freedom. I mean, you got to have them, but
that is interesting though, that a dump truck has that is more likely to be broken or have issues than any of your other equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it's carrying a lot of weight, and and you put a lot of miles on a dump truck, because you think about it, you have a guy sitting in there all day long, every day.
Yeah.
You know, you could rack up the miles in a
starting
hurry.
and stopping 20,000 pounds of rock and 20,000 pounds of truck, and that's a load, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us, Brian, about, and you told me the story, and I thought it was amazing about. Well, maybe start at the beginning. Give us your background in terms of schooling and career, because as you mentioned, you poured concrete for a lot of years, and mostly what I want you to tell the listeners is about how you bought the business, and I want to, in particular, hear you tell about that negotiation you had, because I think it's the most beautiful negotiation I've ever heard of. But start at the beginning. Tell us about your
all right,
your background and how you got to this chair you're in now.
When I was a little kid, we lived in southeastern Idaho, and our family, my dad and my uncle and my grandpa, we had a sand and gravel business, and they had a concrete plant. And so I grew up as a little kid.
Doomed.
I rode around in the dump truck with my dad. I rode around in a concrete truck, and those older trucks, I swear, none of them had a passenger seat. It was either a milk crate or a 5-gallon bucket. But I rode around those as a kid. I spent a lot of time sitting on the fender of the backhoe with my dad. So you know, I was too little to run the equipment, but I was around it, and I had my Tonka toys at home, and so you know, I had the bug then.
You were born and bred in it. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So that's how I started out, and then you know, series of events, things changed, and we moved to Eastern Oregon. My uncle had a farm there, and my dad managed it for him. And so we shifted from construction to farming. And so I grew up
with both those experiences.
So very young, I got put on a tractor cultivating beans, you know, disking. I ran water truck, you know, just anything you can do on a farm.
And watching the equipment be fixed. More importantly,
fix it. There's always something to do. You're around trucks. So I guess my whole life up to that point was around heavy equipment.
Oh, okay. Well, it was inevitable then.
Like Mitch.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the same way. He just.
Same story.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
So anyhow, so then, oh, shoot. Then I went off to school.
BYU, Idaho.
And I was in the landscape architecture program.
So what made you want to go to school? Like if you had an instinct that you're going to be doing landscaping, and maybe you weren't thinking dirt work at the time, but what made you want to go to school?
I wasn't thinking dirt work at the time.
Okay.
So I needed to get an education. You know, I saw it as a valuable thing to do. So I was going to school. I'd come home in the summertime, and I worked for other farmers, you know, doing hay. One summer I ran a concrete pump, a boom pump.
Wow.
For my uncle. I'd come home at Christmas time and I'd haul containers of alfalfa to Seattle.
God, he's like the Swiss Army man.
Yeah.
So,
like that.
So anyhow, so during that whole time, somewhere when I was going to college, I got this concrete bug. So I did a internship for a landscape company in Reno, Nevada. And while I was there, I decided to buy a bull float, a couple handles, and finished my internship, went back to Idaho and got a couple side hustles doing some sidewalks and things. I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure.
And I'm sure they didn't turn out real great. But anyhow, I had a professor at school, and he was actually a concrete contractor on the side, which is kind of a rare find.
Yeah, none of this makes sense with, like, you think about school and concrete and internships where you're buying bull floats. It's like, he
was an English professor too.
Awesome.
But he was a contractor. So I got hooked up with him and did a couple jobs with him, and met another guy that was a student as well, but had his own concrete business, and went to work with him. Just to earn extra money while I was at school. And so anyhow, I got this concrete bug, and I just wanted to learn and do everything about concrete. And I decided, you know, since I was doing the landscape architecture degree, I thought I want to do decorative concrete, do pool decks and that sort of thing.
You were itching to stamp something.
So I was really itching to do that. So anyhow, while I was there, I met my wife, Eliza.
But by the way, I had known Eliza since she was just a pup. Like 8 maybe, or 9 or 7. I don't know how old she was when I met her, but I've known her a long time.
So we both got done with our schooling, and we decided to move to Bend. You know, it was about halfway between where her folks live and where mine live, and we thought, well, we'll just move to Bend. We didn't have any prospects there.
Sure.
So we went there, and I interviewed with a landscape company. I was gonna go to work doing some design work and whatnot. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I liked the landscaping part, but the equipment was it was too small. It was just too small.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to be a problem. So it was then that I came to Roseburg and helped you up at John's place, doing that concrete up there.
That's right.
And, you know, anyhow, several.
So let me just throw in. So at your wedding reception, after the party was done up at John's place, they had arranged to borrow Paul Santos's 18-wheeler tractor, a cab. It was a cab over with a sleeper.
It was a conventional truck.
It was a conventional truck, all right. Yeah. And it was up there at the side of the reception. And when the bride and the groom left the reception, Brian drove that conventional tractor semi down the hill, down the 1 mile driveway, and off they went into the sunset, driving a highway rig.
Our getaway rig.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
It was neat.
That is cool.
So you wanted concrete, and you showed up in Douglas County, helped me on that flat work around the outside of his house. I can only barely remember. I did a deck, I think, and it was flat work under the deck.
Yeah, we did exposed ribbons, and then
that's right. That was a job
inside of it.
That about crippled Tom. Remember? I leveraged you guys into doing way too many feet of ribbon. And
that was a lot of ribbon.
It was a lot. And Tom had his knee pads on too tight, cut off the circulation to his legs, and he was crippled for a year. Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
you might have just like implicated yourself in a lawsuit there.
Well, Tom's a very forgiving soul. He kept working.
So there were several things, and we finally decided that we were just going to move to Roseburg. And I remember asking you, who, I want to do concrete. Who's a good outfit to go to work for? And you pointed me to Bruce Caldwell, and
let me tell you about the phone call.
There.
Did I ever tell you about the phone call I had with Bruce after that conversation?
No, I don't think so.
I called him. I said, Bruce, this is Scott Wadsworth. Yeah, hi, Scott. I didn't know him very well. I said, I'm just about to give you the name of the best hand you're ever going to hire, but here's the deal. If you don't keep him busy and I have enough work, I'm going to hire him away from you. Okay, that's fair enough. How long did you work for Bruce?
12 years.
12 years. That's a long
12
ride.
years.
Yeah.
When I started, they were in the middle of a large RV park project, and it was a lot of production. And I had poured some concrete back in eastern Idaho, but I wasn't a seasoned concrete
You didn't
finisher
really know
by any means.
You just ran.
And so it was, fake it till you make it. So I started out working with those guys, pouring concrete every single day. And, I had just planned on staying there for a couple of years, learn some experience, and then strike out on my own doing pool decks, right?
Still want to do decorative.
Not a lot of pool decks here in Douglas County.
Like 8.
But anyhow, we got involved in some really unique projects, and
Bruce does cool
I
work.
really enjoyed the work, the challenge. It wasn't repetitive work. We did like a custom basement with round walls, or we did some spillways, and little by little, I started doing more of the structures for water. Like they'll put a box culvert under a highway, and we'd build the wing walls on each end. Those were probably my favorite things to work on. Pretty non-typical, lots of rebar.
Government specs had to be done just exactly one way, and just exactly one schedule.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound weird to some of the guys listening, because you came out of college and went right to finishing and pouring concrete, which is not what a lot of people hope to be doing after college. They imagine more, I don't know, not manual labor like that. But what was your, I guess at the time you were getting experience and getting ready to go out on your own thing. Is that sort of the mindset? You obviously you're like happy to work hard, and that's not my point. My point is more, you didn't see anything wrong with just jumping right in next to old salty concrete guys. And even though you've been through college at that point and could technically have probably settled in a more, I don't know, landscape architecture probably has some more comfortable office-y type jobs, I would think, right?
I'm just not an office guy.
Yeah.
I grew up working outside, the blue collar lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
So I have no desire to sit at a desk all day long. Can't do it.
So, but your education helped you with Bruce Caldwell, because you ended up helping with bidding and job tracking and cost estimating and some management responsibilities that you were more qualified for, probably, I'm guessing, because of some of that educational time.
Yeah, I took bidding and estimating courses in school. So, I had some ideas on how it worked.
And you could operate a keyboard.
Yep. I have computer skills and how to use spreadsheets and those kinds of things. I learned those in school. So those are certainly valuable skills that I gained there.
Was it worth the cost of tuition?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose you could learn it.
You met your wife, so maybe that was
that
worth
made
the
it worth
cost
it.
of
That made
tuition.
it worth it right there. Good call. So yeah, working for Bruce was great. Kind of worked my way up into I guess I call myself a working foreman.
For Bruce.
The neatest thing I got to do was, I'd get to go put together an estimate for a job, and then go out and run the job.
That's cool.
And
so that's not a working foreman. Foreman never put together the money on the job. Okay, the foreman's on the job, and he inherits the price and the schedule, and he's got the plans. So that's about 2 steps. It's not quite. It was almost a project manager, right, on that project.
Yeah, I guess. But I was a project manager.
You were a working project
with
manager.
My nail bags on.
You were a working project manager. That's a great job.
There are several times I'm standing on the side at the side of my truck. I've got my tool belt on, and I got my laptop computer out. So I was working with the crew every day.
There you go.
With my hands.
And I'm sure there were plenty of generals you guys did work for that identified you as somebody that they would like to hire away from Bruce. That had to happen. Because you don't see working guys who can go over to the truck and run that computer. You may not be privy to that, but I just know that happened.
Okay.
Most people can run a computer these days.
Not most construction geeks who can also run a bull float.
Well,
I mean, so I know a lot of construction guys who are tops. In fact, we work with them, for whom a computer is foreign.
Sure.
Foreign. That do their bids and their calculation, their job tracking on a yellow pad, and there's a stack of them on the floor of their work truck. You know,
wow.
So you guys who have that advantage of being computer savvy, it's easy to project that onto all your millennial peers, but not all of them have it. Now, plenty probably.
Yeah.
But
so I think the best part about that scenario was, you know, if you're a foreman and you go to do a new job that someone else bid, and you know they're calling you on the phone, well, how come it took those guys this long to do the footing forms, or how come that wall's taking so long? When I was the one that put together the bid, I knew how many man hours there were for each part of the job, and I always had in the back of my mind that I'm going to beat that.
I'm beating it.
You know, we're going to beat that, even though I had nothing to gain for doing that. But I was driven that way to try to beat my own numbers.
It's a sickness,
and
I get it.
And there's a thrill to that.
There
I don't
sure
know
is.
what it is, but
I do.
But
It's great.
I really enjoyed my experience working for Bruce, doing concrete work. We did some really unique projects that made you really think outside the box.
So I'll just tell you that personally, watching that from a distance for 10 or 12 years after connecting you guys, I got a ton of satisfaction out of what I saw going on from, you know, with my spyglass. How's Brian doing over there with Bruce? How's Bruce doing over there with Brian? And we had enough mutual friends who would work occasionally on Bruce's jobs that I could kind of keep track of it. And it was neat.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big slab support, and we'd call Dustin and Tom, and they would come, and we just put together a big crew so we could get large projects done.
Just like we did on that porch.
Yeah, and
2 months ago.
It's fun. It's fun to go work with those guys.
It's fun. Yeah, they're the best.
So
you guys are a great crew.
Talk us through. Obviously, Bruce was a little bummed when you left, but probably not totally surprised. But I want to hear about how you got into excavation and came about buying the business and taking it over. So maybe we'll finish on that little sequence there.
So when I worked for Bruce, you know, I come home at night and I get my computer out and I'd be doing, you know, the
Minecraft
estimating, or I'd be doing daily reports on what we did that day, and I talked to my wife like, you know, this project we're doing really good on, I'm beating my numbers, and she would look at me and say like, you know, when are you going to do this for yourself?
Like, Bruce must be really happy.
I bet Bruce's wife is delighted.
You know, he took good care of me, but you know, she was always asking me that, and it was a constant thing for a few years, you know, of asking me, you know, you should really do this on your own. The bids we started to get were more and more out of town. I spent a summer in Medford living in a hotel room. I went over to Bend and did a job. Fun projects, unique projects, but not at home.
Yeah.
So that was a big push. And, you know, swinging a 8-pound sledgehammer is nice, and you feel tough and everything like that. But after doing it for years and years, it's kind of detrimental to your joints.
You're not kidding.
And I'm starting to feel it in my shoulders. And, you know, I look at these old timers that have poured concrete their whole lives, and they're in rough shape.
Used up.
They're you know, having surgeries, and they're hunched over, and they're hurting.
They got a little tray full of pills in the truck.
A lot of pills. And I pushed hard. And so I could wear out a brand new pair of work boots in 9 months. They're just shot, walk through the soles of them. You know, I don't know how many miles a day I walked, but a lot. And so I could see all these things, you know, I needed to do something different. So I was trying to figure out what that was. And so I thought about Danny Potter's business. He was somebody that I never worked for, not once.
He didn't work for Bruce while
he didn't
you were
work for
working
Bruce.
He worked for me. He worked for me a lot.
He's someone that I knew. I actually did the foundation on his house. Someone that I was around. I think, you know, he did a lot of work for my father-in-law. And so I would run into him and ask him how he's doing, and he's like, you know, doing good. I'd like to slow down and retire someday. And so I just kind of planted a seed in the back of my mind. And so I was thinking about it one day, and I thought, maybe I should do dirt work. I think I could do okay with doing dirt work. And so I stewed on this, and I even talked to Bruce, told him, I need to do something different, whether it's with your business or something completely different. I need to do something different because I'm not doing anything for myself to move things along.
And he understood that.
And he understood that, yeah. And so one day I was working when I was working in Bend. I called Denny up on the phone.
No kidding, you cold called him?
I called him up and I said,
you're getting kind of old,
Well, I said, how are things going? And I knew he was wanting to slow down. And I said, would you be willing to sell your business to me? I don't know anything about buying a business. I mean, that was a totally foreign concept to me.
Wow. Were you surprised to hear yourself saying that?
Yeah, it took a lot of courage to dial the number and start that conversation, because I knew in the back of my mind, if I start this conversation, it's gonna be tricky for a while. There's a lot of stuff to figure out.
We're getting out of the security comfortable zone. We're gonna do something new.
Yes, but making that initial call, that was the hardest thing to do. So after that,
what did he say?
He said, I let me think about it. I think we might be able to work something out.
Wow.
So I think it was like a week later or so, I ran into him and I talked to him, and he had talked to his wife, and they decided that we'd continue the conversation.
He probably burst into tears of joy right when he hung up.
Perhaps.
You're not going to believe it. Oh, it's a bit. Oh, I'll think about it. Oh, I can't believe it.
So that was I think that was in the fall of 2016 that I made that call. So anyhow, my wife and I went over there and met with them, and we started talking through things, and we decided that we were going to try to make it work. So then it was try to figure out how to.
Okay, just a second. You came home from Bend and you said, "Hey," or you called Eliza that night. Say, "Eliza, I called Denny Potter." He said he would think about it. What did she say?
I don't remember what she said, but I know she was excited.
You bet she was
excited that I finally went to do something different.
Yeah. So Denny had a few excavators and dump trucks and a couple employees. Is that like the scope of his operation?
Yeah, they worked as a three-man crew.
Russ and Dexter and Denny.
Yes.
And had been in business for decades and they just do the dirt work locally in that way. Is that it? Cool.
And he had then the same reputation that Brian had now. And there's been lots of guys that I've talked to that they were appalled to hear that Denny had sold. Yeah. Denny is class act. Dexter and Russ and Denny were just smooth. Denny's selling, now what? Yeah. And then when the word got out, Brian Reynolds, that might be all right. Yeah, and they've been vastly relieved.
So tell us about, you guys started talking, and this is what I mentioned earlier, but I think it's the most beautiful negotiation I've ever heard of. So tell us about get to like that moment you both start doing research on figuring out what this thing's worth.
Yeah. So basically we decided which machines he wanted to sell, because he wanted to keep some machines because
he's got a ranch.
He still goes on fires and things like that. So there's some things he didn't want to sell, and that's fine. So we went through the machines that he wanted to sell, and I went home and did my research. What's this machine worth? And then he did the same, and we met together and just kind of negotiated a little bit until we had a firm number of what we were willing to pay for each machine specifically. And then the trickiest thing is purchasing what they call the blue sky. Mm-hmm. You're buying someone's business. Okay. So what is that? What are you getting? It's not like I'm buying existing contracts or anything like that. That's not what it is. It's you're buying a name, a reputation. And so how do you put a number on that?
Yeah, it's a phone number
because
and a name.
The only thing tangible
it's worth a lot though
that you get is the office phone number, which is mostly spam callers. Yeah. Really, and then a name on the door, and so I researched it, and there's different formulas that people have come up with based on gross revenues and all these things like that. And so it finally just came down to, okay, this is what I think it's worth. And so we went and met with them, and we both basically had the same number.
You had the same number.
So, I mean, all this anxiety going into this, like, you know, are they going to be offended when I say what I think it's worth?
You both had wrote your number down on a piece of paper, and it was kind of like, all right, turn it over, and it's a match.
I can't remember exactly how that went down, but something like that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool.
we had the same number. So
Wow.
right there, then
Everybody's happy.
I was happy, and they were happy. So that worked out really good.
Yeah, and you're like, I should have offered him less. I'm just teasing. It really is cool, and I got to think for him, it's just got to be so satisfying to.
Okay, we're going to bring Denny in here and have this interview with him.
Just to sell your business in that way, and you know that value of blue sky. Like nobody knows how valuable it is more than Denny, and yet it's like there's just how many buyers are there for that blue sky? Like one. You know,
Right. Right.
Like he needs you and you need him, kind of.
And the whole way through it, he always said that, you know, it has to work for me.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Not for him, because, you know, he has this business that he's developed over these years and years and years of working and relationships with different builders and whatnot. And he's turning that over to me.
Yep.
And so, but he knew that it had to work for me, or else I wouldn't do it.
Yep. It would not be sustainable.
It was for him. I think it was a way out, a way of, you know, of retiring, because you don't have these people that you've done work with for years and years and years. When they call, you kind of feel loyal to keep helping them out, and this was a way out of that.
They wouldn't call you if they didn't need you. And so at the moment, you're going to have to decide, do I tell them that even though you need me, I can't help you anymore?
And the customers are a lot of businesses. So it's other home builders who, it's not like one customer who needs a plumbing repair who can call another plumber, but it's like these people, their business really relied on this dirt work service. I would think, you know, custom home builders, like,
big time.
What are they going to do? Buy an excavator and a dump truck? Like maybe they'd have to, you know, they really truly were needing
and
that.
Like I am that person, right? I happen to know you personally when that happened. But I was still in danger of losing Denny Potter as my excavation contractor, and he had demonstrated to me that I would never call anyone else. That Lee Sharp job, okay? Denny came back in there, and he was so surgical, and he never broke anything, and he never made anybody mad, and he was always on time, and he always cleaned up his mess, and the price was always fair. And I thought, I can't duplicate that. Oh wait, Brian bought it. I think I can duplicate that. And it was just a huge relief for all of us. I've talked to other people who felt the same way. So it was a win-win-win. It was a win for you two, and it was a win for those of us in the grandstand seats watching, you know, what's going to happen, you know.
So looking back, do you think you could, let's say that opportunity didn't exist, do you think you could have built and got yourself to this position you are now, you know, busy as you want to be, without purchasing that blue sky and equipment? Or maybe if someone else was listening to this, wanting to do this, but without an opportunity to buy someone's business, can you do it yourself, or would you recommend waiting and buying somebody's operation?
I think the way that we did it was pretty awesome, because if I was to go out cold turkey and buy, say, a mini excavator, okay, I want to do dirt work. Yeah, I'm pretty limited on what I can do. I mean, very, very limited. Yeah. We bought multiple pieces of machinery and kind of jumped beyond that level to where we were more versatile and could do more work. And so that's a huge difference that just jumping into it cold turkey would be really hard to do.
So you could do more work, and you had more work coming in over your telephone.
Yes.
Oh, huge.
And the thing is, like with these custom home builders, they're people that I did foundations for when I worked for Bruce. And so a lot of these people, they're the same people. Denny did their dirt work.
Yep.
I did some concrete work for him. And so between the people that came through the business that we bought, those contacts and the contacts that I already had, right out of the gate, we had more work than we could do.
And you had Denny to bounce some numbers off of. Denny, what kind of a price should I put on something like this until you had it automatic and could just sit in there and see how many days right off the bat.
There was the first year we had 2 large projects, and that Denny helped me, kind of put the numbers together with, because I didn't know how far that excavator could trench in a day. I had no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
I did lots of estimates where I knew how many feet of footings the guys could put together, but so I had to take that experience and translate it into dirt work. And so Denny helped me figure that part out.
So maybe the last question, you've had you got 2 great experience working for somebody in a position that was satisfying and interesting, and now you're running your own business in a way that's satisfying and interesting. So which is better, or what would you recommend, or is it, how do you look at those 2 options and compare and contrast them, or is it just time of life?
Oh, I'm not sure if this answers your question or not, but both experiences, my concrete background has been a huge asset to what I do now. Because I, if I'm prepping for footings, I already know what the guys that are going to form it, what they want. I did the next phase for years. And so I understand grades and slopes. That's something natural to me, because I just know it. And so to do whatever trade you're going to do, if you know the next trade that's coming behind you, that makes you, I think, way more valuable.
Way more valuable.
Because you don't get called back to dig a little bit more here because they don't have enough room to work, things like that.
And it's that. But what it really is from the business perspective is the man that's paying you for the work you did it makes a difference in how much money he makes at the end of the job, because he used you for that phase of the work. Because the next phase of the work that he's paying for goes quicker and easier because your phase of the work was done perfectly for the people that are following you. And that is the advantage that you brought. That is where Potter Excavation stepped up. All of a sudden, Potter Excavation has somebody who really understands concrete at the helm. And so that was an improvement. So not only was... So that is what it is in real terms. It's a competitive advantage to be able to perform the dirt work for concrete perfectly instead of just very well. It's a boost.
Yes. I don't know how many times, I try to run a string line to set something up and there's a pile of dirt in the way.
Yep.
Just silly things like that that takes 30 seconds to move with the loader.
Yep.
And so
2 hours for a man with a shovel.
Exactly. And how many times did I have to do that with a shovel? So now when I prep a site, it's clean. There aren't piles of dirt. There aren't holes. I try to make it so that it is nice for the guys that are coming. And I think the builders appreciate that.
You bet they do.
So my takeaway here, and for someone listening who is paying attention, in other words, spending 12 years working for somebody and getting a paycheck is not a waste of time. In terms of, like, you're not just on a hamster wheel. You're learning and waiting and meeting people, and on the 11th and a half year, let's say, of yours, all of those 11 and a half years, the contractors, the learning the next phase, getting familiar with Danny, all those things, like, time well spent. So if you are punching a time card and spending years working for a job, it's not a waste of time just because you don't own the truck you climb in every day. If you're learning.
And learning includes learning the phone numbers and the contact information and the capacity of the people you're working with. That's part of what you're learning. You're learning what your network and your relationship pool is going to be moving forward. It's just huge. It can't be overstated.
So one thing you might find interesting is when my wife and I finally decided that, yes, we were going to buy this business, I told Bruce, I said, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to buy Denny's business and we're going to take over. So basically I gave him 6 months notice that I was leaving.
That's nice.
And he kept me busy up until Friday, and Monday morning I took off with my own business.
Wow.
Just like that.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is.
6 months. That's really
generous
and nice and pretty cool.
It was generous, but he kept me busy all that time.
Friday, he's like, go wash my truck.
Yeah. Well, you had the best concrete job in Douglas County. That job that you had with Bruce was the best job available as in something that's essentially concrete specialization. I mean, the other companies that we could talk about and rattle off, they didn't have anything available on their payroll that was as good as what you had with Bruce for opportunities to learn and do interesting jobs and prevailing wage and all those things. Absolutely. Everything from decorative to it prepared you for everything that's coming next. And none of the other companies in Roseburg could have done that.
Well, hopefully you've satisfied that weird itch you had to do concrete. I mean, I get getting to do woodworking and I want to paint, but come on, hopefully you got that out of your system, because I don't get it.
It's still fun.
He comes and helps us,
to get
man.
together.
Yeah, it's true. But like, I think I'm going to make furniture in my garage. It's like, I get it, but like, I'm going to pour some concrete.
I've still got all my trowels, and it is a joy to go get them out and pour some concrete.
It's probably especially fun when it's not like your concrete and your, like, you know, when you just kind of show up for it. Not that that's the fun part, but like you said, when you're with your friends and guys you haven't seen in a bit.
Working with Dustin and Tom and Rich and Bo, for example,
no doubt
it is
that's
fun. It's just a pleasure. It's a cooperating sports team in a kick butt game, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. What a team effort it is compared to other trades. You know, like you know, a crew of plumbers running through. It's not quite the same. Like you don't feel like maybe like an offensive line.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the way
that
a crew of concrete guys
it's
all
an offensive line
working on that slab. Yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty. And
the
cool.
other thing that you'll notice if you haven't already, the next time we work, and I don't know if I'm going to have a pour big enough to justify bringing you back in. I would love to, but we'll just see. But when they're talking to each other working, they're not saying anything about the work. They're talking about their lives and their hunting trip and their kids and where they're going with their wife. And they're talking about anything they want to talk about, and the work just happens without any communication because everybody knows exactly what the guy next to him is going to do in the next second. It's really neat. That's part of the magic of it for me, is that unspoken communication when everybody is fully professional, you know, and thinking the same way. It's really magic.
It's a well-oiled machine.
It's a well-oiled machine.
It's just, yeah, you're right. There's no, hey, you need to go cut those joints over there, or that edge needs to get hit again.
Yeah.
You just know.
Unless I'm helping, and then I've got to be bossed like a dog because I'm not part of that well-oiled machine. But it's like in the Final Four, college basketball, you know, any one of those teams coming down the floor, you know, their offense, everybody knows what that other guy is going to do, and the pass, it's the same thing. That's why it's fun.
What's it like? This might be our last question for you. What's it like doing all that when the camera's on you?
Well, you know, when you're when you're reaching out to trowel something that you can barely reach, and you know, it's like, is that camera behind me? I'm not sure. So that goes through your head a little bit, but
yeah.
You're free to say it sucks, okay?
The
work's still fun, but the camera part's a little different.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it's like you might as well put like a scope on the top of it, you know, or like a barrel coming out of it.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks for coming on, Brian. And for the listeners, we'll collect all of the concrete videos you showed up in. I'm sure there's half a dozen of them at this point, so people can have those in one spot. And I thought this was really great. And thanks again for doing our concrete work. Any last thoughts for a young up-and-comer concrete guy who wants to be in your shoes operating equipment?
Oh, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, make the leap when the time's right. Make the leap. It's something that you say, like, why didn't I do this years ago? And so sometimes I think that, you know, I could have done this a few years earlier, but at the same time, I gained some super valuable knowledge that just helps us be better at our business.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Now, before we sign off all the way, I'm going to put a bunch of links, and at the very top of that is going to be to Brian's Instagram account, because there's a video on there, one of the first ones, of this egg rock that rolled out of a hill. I don't even know how else to describe it, and for some reason I'm obsessed with it. I bring it up every time I see you, but he's got a great Instagram account that shows some of the work he's done, including this dinosaur egg that's bigger than a Suburban, right?
Not quite that big.
Okay, it's a
big rock.
It's a Volkswagen Bug, but it looks like an actual egg, and
it does look like that.
It rolls out of the side of this hill. It's insane.
Yeah.
We got to get a geologist. I'm sure there's a name for it, but it looks like like an egg, like it was laid out of some big bird. So, anyways, we'll put your Instagram account on there. Folks can check you out there. You got a website or anything?
I haven't got a website yet. Just started doing the Instagram thing here a month ago or so.
Yeah. Well, we'll send our audience over there, and we will put links to half a dozen concrete videos that you've showed up to on our channel, so people can get a look at some of the other type of places you showed up.
And we're looking forward to having you back over to the spec house for that last little bit of grading out in the front and the sidewalk. It'd be great to have you guys back over there again.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, are you going to bring that track loader that you mentioned? Your Takahauchi?
Probably not on this job.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to get more footage of that thing up close because those are fun to film. Also, they're so like just fast and smooth and zippy and all that. So one of these days. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next time.